Chapter 233, Eve of the Tournament, 1. 98F, Demon Hunter Guild, Guild Master Office. Young Miss, thank God you're here. Arriving at her father's office, Amanda found Maxwell rushing in her direction. His face was visibly distraught. What's wrong? Halting her footsteps, Amanda frowned. Young Miss, something terrible happened to the guild master. Amanda's heart sank when she heard those words. Father? She tried her best to keep her calm. At least on the surface. Investigating a potential energy spike coming from one of the ranked dungeons that we own, fearing for the worst, the guild master decided to head in to check on the situation. Unfortunately, Maxwell took a deep breath. Unfortunately, the dungeon desynced whilst the guild master was inside. Amanda took a step back. Her body turned cold. A dungeon desync was when a dungeon suddenly lost its connection to the human world. As a result, if anyone stayed in it, they would find themselves transported to the demon world. The most dangerous place that existed. Don't worry, young miss, although the guild master is in a troubling situation, not all hope is lost. His vital signs seem to still be okay, at the moment, meaning that he is still alive. Seeing Amanda's state, Maxwell tried his best to comfort her. Unfortunately, his words weren't convincing as he occasionally fumbled on his speech. As I've said before, there really is no need for you to worry about the guild. Hearing Maxwell talk, Amanda stood there in a daze. Everything Maxwell said just went from one ear to the other. She couldn't process anything. Even if what Maxwell said was true, Amanda knew that the situation was dire. Stuck inside of a dungeon with no way out, chances were that her father would no longer come back. In the past, there had never been a case of someone ever escaping from a closed dungeon. Never. We are trying anything within our young miss? Taking a look at Amanda, Maxwell stopped. Her face was pale. Maxwell instantly became worried. Young miss, please listen. Although the guild master is stuck inside of the dungeon, his life does not seem in danger at the moment. Please don't asu. May I have some time alone, please? Amanda suddenly cut Maxwell off. A weak smile appeared on her face. As you wish, young miss. Staring at Amanda's weak smile, Maxwell lowered his head. Though he wanted to say something, noticing Amanda's current state, he decided that it was best to leave her alone. Bowing down, he turned around and left. Watching Maxwell leave the room, Amanda walked with faltering steps. Her legs didn't move as she intended them to. She almost fell multiple times but finally managed to arrive before her father's desk. Sitting down on her father's seat, she looked at her father's desk. Apart from the myriad of papers sprawled all over the place, on it were multiple pictures of her and her father when she was a child. Taking one of the pictures, Amanda caressed it. As she caressed the picture frames, Amanda's mind blanked. Father. She muttered as her body faintly trembled. Was this a repeat of the past? Was someone else going to leave her again? Would her father leave like her mother and Agnes, her nanny? She didn't want that. Suddenly, Amanda's vision blurred. Peta. Only then did she realize that tears were streaming down her face. Leviathan Building, 10 a.m. Inside of a private training ground. Huff. With heavy breaths, I lowered my body and did a push-up. 294, 295, 296. Counting the reps inside of my mind, I continued to do this for the next 30 minutes or so. Whilst I was doing the push-up, on my finger was a small black ring. == Name, Ring of Gravity. Rank, C. Description, a ring with 10 settings. Upon wearing the ring, body mass will double. Whenever the setting is changed, the mass will double with respect to the setting chosen. By adjusting the settings of the ring, I could manually increase the weight on my body. Though I could use the gravity room, according to Donna, in order for me to improve my mana capacity, I had to continuously deplete my mana and replenish it. Just like training a muscle. Hoo. Taking a deep breath, I did another push-up. After my meeting with Jean last week, I had this sudden urge within me to just drop everything and start training. And so that's exactly what I did. Leaving all matters related to the mercenary guild to Small Snake, I closed myself inside of my room for a whole week and trained like crazy. With lectures now on hold because of the tournament that was about to begin, apart from the occasional call-ups from Instructor August with regards to the tournament, I had a lot of time to myself. Time in which I fully spent on training. Apart from eating and sleeping, all I did was train. With Kevin and now Jean continuously getting stronger, I realized that I was getting left behind by them. Most shockingly, Jean had ranked up to rank. Something that was only supposed to have happened towards the beginning of the second year. Jin's rate of progress was astonishing. I can't get left behind. With this thought in mind, I upped the intensity of the training. Next goal, rank. I could feel it, I was close. The usual peaceful morning was disrupted by the endless chattering coming from a bunch of students lined up in a horizontal line. Before them stood a tall and stern instructor. After an arduous couple of hours of intense training, the instructor had ordered them to line up in front of him. "Shut up!" Instructor August's voice boomed across the area. Instantly all chattering ceased. "This fucking job. Here you go, sir." Next to Instructor August, an attendant handed him a stack of papers. Briefly glancing at them, clicking his tongue, Instructor August thrust them back to the attendant. "What do I need the papers for?" "Just send them to the students through a message." Instructor August berated. "This is your job, not my job." But. "No, buts, I don't have time to deal with this kind of crap. I'm here to train the students. Don't waste my time with such useless crap." Cutting the attendant off, Instructor August glared at the attendant, instantly overwhelming him with his presence. "Q. Understood?" "Why, yes." Under the terrifying glare, the attendant could only nod his head. The attendant took the papers and left. Not wanting to be next to Instructor August anymore, the attendant had basically run away. "You'll soon get a message detailing the games that you will be participating in as well as the rules of the tournament." Turning back his attention to the students, Instructor August gave a brief rundown on the situation. "Wham." Listening to Instructor August speak, a small yawn escaped from my lips. Honestly, Instructor August's training sessions, although brutal, were not as brutal as the ones I had with Donna and Monica. Compared to theirs, this felt refreshing. That aside, the atmosphere around the campus. With the tournament coming up in about a week's time, tensions were rising in the academy. Especially between the lock students and the exchange students. Though things didn't reach the point where conflicts arose, the tension in the air was stronger than ever. "Okay, I think I've said enough for today." Snapping me out of my thoughts was Instructor August's loud voice. "You're dismissed." With Instructor August's announcement, the training session came to an end. Besides me, the other students let out a sigh of relief as they headed back to their dorms. "What are you going to do now?" On my way back to the dorms, walking beside me, Kevin asked. "I'm going to go back to the dorm." Is that so? Why? You wanted to go somewhere?" "Not really." By the way, what was up with you this past week?" I could barely get a hold of you. Kevin shook his head and switched the topic. Right, I was training. Dedicating most of my time to training this past few weeks. I would only see him during the morning practice sessions with Donna or tournament training sessions. Aside from that, I refused to leave my room. Right now, all I had in my mind was training. Training?
Yeah.
I see, that makes sense. Kevin wasn't any different. He too spent most of his time training. So this was probably why he didn't say much after. Hold up. Suddenly, a crisp voice called from the distance. Emma? Kevin said as he turned his head towards where the voice came from. He was able to instantly recognize the owner of the voice. Turning around to double-check who the voice belonged to my surprise I found out that it was Emma's. Arriving before Kevin, Emma passed by me without even greeting me or acknowledging my presence and looked at Kevin straight in the eyes. Kevin. Yes? Can you slow down a little? Ah, sure. It was only then that I realized that Kevin and I were walking a bit too fast. As such, we slowed down a little. Enough to accommodate Emma. Thanks. Moving next to Kevin, Emma thanked him. So what did you want to talk about? Looking back into Emma's eyes, Kevin asked. It's about Amanda. Amanda, what about her? How should I say this, but did you perhaps notice something different about her these couple of days? I wanted to see if I wasn't the only one that felt this way. After struggling to choose the right words, Emma voiced her concerns. So Amanda is acting weird according to you?
Yeah.
Turning his head, Kevin looked at Amanda who was not far off from where they were. After a couple of seconds, he bitterly smiled and shook his head. She looks the same to me. Really? Then am I perhaps overthinking things? Emma frowned. She did not look convinced. Sorry, I'm not very good at judging facial expressions and emotions. Scratching the back of his head, Kevin apologized. No, it's fine. I'm probably overthinking things. It's just that I wasn't able to see Amanda for the past week or so. I tried texting her but she wouldn't respond no matter how many times I messaged her. Typically Amanda would always text back within an hour or so. Her behaving like this was quite odd. What's going on? Overhearing the conversation between Kevin and Emma, I tilted my head to the side and looked in Amanda's direction. Did anything happen to Amanda? I turned my attention to Amanda. Taking a closer look at her from the distance, I tried to see if there was anything different about her. After a minute, my brows knit. Although nothing seemed out of the ordinary from Amanda's appearance, I could feel an air of gloom revolving around her. She seemed to be much colder than usual, and even the people close to her felt the same as they stayed away from her. Could it be? Recalling Emma's words to Kevin, a thought suddenly struck me. I could only think of one scenario in the novel that would cause her to become like this. Ranked Dungeon Desync Incident. The day wherein Ranked Dungeon desynced with her father in it. An event that would only be revealed after a couple of years thanks to the higher-ups in the Demon Hunter Guild covering everything up. Unfortunately, they could not cover it up for long and it would soon be revealed to the whole world. Once revealed, the whole world shook and the Demon Hunter Guild fell to second place with Starlight Guild finally overtaking them. It was also the event that caused Amanda to close herself up even more. But why now? I thought as I placed my hand on my chin. I couldn't wrap my head around the timing of this event. This was an event that was only supposed to happen in a couple of more years. How did it suddenly get pushed up by so much? What were the variables that I influenced that made it this way? Just when I least expected it, another problem arose. With Amanda's father now gone, I knew that I could only keep my parents safe for a couple of years. Once news of Amanda's father's disappearance became known, I knew that I was on my own. Staring at the clear blue sky, I muttered, "This is going to be troublesome, I hope I'm wrong." Chapter 234, Eve of the Tournament, 2. == Participant name, Ren Dover. Gender, male. Year, first year. Participating games. Dummy massacre. Within a specific time frame, participants will be surrounded by multiple combat dummies. The score will be based on most kills within that time period. First year team battle royale. 3-man battle royale. Last team standing wins. Team composition. Kevin Voss. Jean Horton. Ren Dover. Good thing I only have to participate in 2 games. I scrolled through my phone. This was the tournament log that I had received hours ago. In it were the details of the game that I would be participating in. Dummy Massacre and Battle Royale. Just 2 games. Whilst I did select Dummy Massacre out of my own volition, for the Battle Royale, that was all done by Donna. Since you guys are the strongest first years, I chose for you to participate as a team. The Battle Royale gives us the most points, and since we need to secure first place in that game, I had to put you guys together to bring our chances up. Was what she said. There was some truth to her words, however, I wasn't sure whether this team composition would work since synergy and teamwork were important. Though I could work well with Kevin, the same couldn't be said for Jean. He wasn't the type to listen. That aside, the reason why I chose Dummy Massacre was because I was confident in getting a high score in that game. At the very least top 10. Though there was a chance for me to get first place, there were a lot of tough competitors. I wasn't conceited enough to say that I was guaranteed first place. Twang. Suddenly I received a notification. Your friend Kevin Voss is turning 17 today, wish him a happy birthday. Oh, right. Almost forgot. Today was Kevin's birthday. Congratulations, you're now 1 day closer to your death. Opening my chat log with Kevin, I sent him a quick birthday wish before closing my phone and going back to training. Because the tournament was right around the corner, none of us had time to celebrate birthdays or anything of the sort. Just a quick message was enough. Theodora Academy Exchange Dorms. Have you chosen your teammates for the Battle Royale? An authoritative voice echoed from the speakers of Aaron's phone. Yes, I have. That's good, are you confident in your chances? There should be no problems, instructor. Aaron confidently said as he genuinely believed in his chances of victory. He had everything planned out. From the games he was participating in, to the Battle Royale. Aaron had a detailed plan for everything. He wasn't going to lose. I see, that's great. I hope that the next time you contact me, it will be news about your victory. It will be. Don't worry. Very well, I wish you luck, Aaron. Thank you. Aaron hung up the phone. It seems like you're confident in your chances of winning the Battle Royale. At that moment, an cold and imposing voice resounded. Aaron turned around. There, a tall and sturdy man calmly walked in Aaron's direction. It's you. Opening his eyes slightly, Aaron's eyes coldly flashed for a second. The man stopped right in front of Aaron. Their eyes locked for a second before the man suddenly smiled. What's wrong with me? Nothing, I was just slightly surprised by your appearance. Aaron shook his head and calmly responded. Oh. What's there to be surprised about? I just didn't expect you to be here looking for me. Under the man's questions, Aaron remained calm and patiently responded to them. I see. The man deeply looked into Aaron's eyes. For a brief moment, neither one of them talked. Breaking the silence was the man's stern voice. Aaron, I want you to keep in mind one thing. This year we're aiming for first place. I don't want to see any blunders. Especially from you. A powerful aura started exuding from his body. KHHH. The imposing aura crashed towards Aaron, who gritted his teeth and withstood it with all his might. You better not disappoint me, muttered the tall man as he retrieved his aura back. He was satisfied with this little test. Aaron truly deserved his fame. Though he held back, his aura shouldn't have been something someone of his age could have withstood. Aaron, I believe in your talent. This is the year Theodora Academy beats the lock. I hope you can help me lead Theodora Academy to the top. I understand. Closing his eyes, Aaron nodded his head. You say you do, but do you really? What do you mean? Aaron's brows knit as he opened his eyes. You think I didn't hear about your little blunder in the dungeon trials? That, I was just caught off guard. I hope it truly was that way. It is. Aaron clenched his fists tightly. How could he forget that day? He could still vividly remember the happenings of the dungeon trials like they were yesterday. He had been too focused by Kevin that he had completely neglected the other student. Jean Horton. That day Aaron experienced the bitter taste of defeat for the first time. Never again did he want to feel that bitter taste of defeat. All right, I'll trust you for now. The male student patted Aaron on the shoulder. Don't worry, I've got the third year's victory secured. The rest is up to you. As long as you win, we're going to beat the lock. The male student spoke in a confident tone. He truly meant what he said. He was confident in his chances. Especially after having done a thorough investigation on the participating members for the third-year battle royale coming from the lock. Ebony Wills, Mark Mendez, Perry Crossley. Each outstanding individuals whose fame resounded across the whole human domain. All three of which had already secured different deals with either the Union or a diamond-graded guild. Without a doubt, they were all future rankers. Unfortunately, despite how good they looked on paper, there was a problem. And the problem was that they were all the respective heads of the three major factions in the lock. Factions that absolutely despised one another. Because of this, they had no synergy between them. No teamwork at all. This was the source of the tall man's confidence. A team with no teamwork was not a team. No matter how talented they were, if they weren't united, they were as good as gone. This was especially so in cases where they met strong and prepared teams. The tall man knew that his chances of winning the battle royale were high. Twang! Twang! Suddenly the man's watch vibrated. Turning his watch slightly, the man read the foremost notification. I guess that will cut our little chat for now. Tracing his hand over his short black hair, the man turned around. I hope you don't forget my words, Aaron. I'd be disappointed if you do. Aaron watched as the man imposingly walked away. His bulky back, mountainous shoulders, and flawlessly refined physique showed that he was anything but simple. Theodora Academy third year's first ranker. A genius whose name was just as famous as the names of the three faction leaders of the lock. Morgan Lowry. A man who will one day become a top ranker. Late into the night, Kevin was working out in the public training ground of the Leviathan building. Because of the limited space of his own training ground, Kevin had no choice but to move to the public one. Even so, Kevin did not dislike it here. Despite it being public, the number of people that frequented this place was low. On rare occasions, he would spot Amanda training in the archery area. Other than that, it would usually be just him. Hue up. With his feet shoulder length apart, Kevin lifted an 800 kilograms bar and did a deadlift. As he lifted the bar, the veins by the side of his neck protruded as his face reddened. Bomb! After lifting the bar once, Kevin dropped it. The heavy sound of the bar hitting the softened floor echoed across the room. Kevin didn't care. This is enough for the warm-up. Taking a towel, Kevin wiped his face clean. Stretching his neck, Kevin took out his sword and calmly walked towards the middle of the training grounds. Kevin. Just as Kevin was about to start practicing, a familiar voice called out for him. I had a hunch that you were here. Emma? The voice belonged to Emma, who was hurriedly walking in his direction. Did you not see my message? Message? A look of confusion appeared on Kevin's face as he took out his phone. There's no need to check, I can already tell that you didn't. Sorry. Putting her hand on Kevin's phone, Emma shook her head. As a result, Kevin laughed in embarrassment. He was too engrossed with training to notice any messages directed to him. Here. Biting her lower lip, Emma suddenly took out a black box from her dimensional space and handed it to Kevin. What's this? Just take it. Forcing the box into Kevin's hands, Emma's cheeks reddened slightly. Wait, what are you? I won't disturb you anymore. Good luck with your training, and happy birthday. Wishing him a happy birthday, she ran off, leaving behind a confused Kevin. Was this her way of wishing me a happy birthday? Looking at the box in his hand, Kevin smiled slightly. It was cute. Twang. Right before Kevin opened the box, his watch suddenly vibrated. It was Ren. Congratulations, you're now 1 day closer to your death. Seriously? Looking at the message, Kevin was at a loss for words. What an idiot. After a while, a small chuckle escaped from his lips. Though he wasn't wrong, couldn't he have just wished him a happy birthday like any other person? You've got problems. Sending a message back to Ren, Kevin turned off his phone and put the box that Emma gave him inside of his dimensional space. He would check it once he was done with his training. Sorry, I've got nothing. Small Snake's voice echoed inside of my ears. Really? Is there like no information at all? Unfortunately, it seems to be that way. No matter how hard I try, I can't find anything out. Demon Hunter Guild has sealed all types of information regarding Edward Stern.
Ha.
I see, all right. Contact me if you find anything else regarding this matter. We'll do that. Do. Small Snake hung up, and the repetitive sound of the phone tone rang inside of my mind. Not minding it, I put my phone on my desk. This is troublesome. Opening my laptop, I wasted the next few minutes looking at random articles about the Demon Hunter Guild. I just wanted something. Any clue leading me to find out the situation in the Demon Hunter Guild was wanted. Yet, no matter how hard I searched, I found nothing. It was as though I was walking in an endless circle. No matter where I went, I was back in the original spot. Should I ask Amanda? I muttered as I closed a web tab. No, that'd be stupid. I quickly discarded such thoughts from my mind. It would be insensitive of me. Amanda's state of mind was probably extremely fragile right now. At this moment she was probably trying her best to remain strong. My comments might cause her fragile state of mind to worsen. I couldn't let that happen. Especially since she was trying her best to not let others down for the tournament. If the event in which her father entered a dungeon desync really happened, then the situation was really bad. It would only be after the third cataclysm started that Amanda would reunite with her father. But that was in the novel. This world was no longer the same. Even though Edward Stern survived the hellish demon world, things might not be the same this time. Right now, everything was different, and I was the cause of it. This situation was my fault. I knew that. However, unlike in the past, I wasn't going to mourn or blame myself for my actions. I did what I had to do. If this was the consequence of my action, then so be it. I will live up to my mistakes and find a solution for it. Well, that's easier said than done. Leaning back on my chair, I scratched the side of my neck. I really was stumped this time. Entering the demon world was out of the question. With dangers lurking everywhere, I knew that going there would only prove to be suicidal on my end. Maybe I could. For the next 30 minutes or so I tried to think of all possible solutions that I could think of. Unfortunately, my mind remained blank throughout the whole time. What should I do? I muttered as I leaned back on my chair. I really did not know what to do. No matter how much I tried to think, I couldn't find a solution to this problem. Chapter 235, Inter Academy Tournament 1. The weekend passed by in the blink of an eye, and the day of the tournament had finally arrived. Reporters filled the academy campus and different colored buses appeared on the roads of the academy as they entered through the main gates. All of the major and minor academies in the human domain had gathered here today for this event. Everywhere I walked, I could see people. It was as though I was in Times Square, New York, back on Earth during Christmas times. It was very crowded. Can you share with us your thoughts on the tournament? What are you planning on achieving? Who do you think the favorites of this tournament are? As I walked around, I could overhear the conversations the reporters were having with some of the students. Some of the students came from the Lock, and some from the other academies. Where are they? Arriving at the academy main gate, I looked left and right. Unfortunately, no matter where I looked, I could only see an endless amount of people trying to get in. Right now, I was looking for my parents. Once they learned of my participation in the tournament, they forced me to send them tickets to the event so that they could watch it live. No, we want to watch it live. Since you're performing, I want to cheer for you, was what my mother said when I told her to watch it on TV. Since I knew that arguing with my mother was pointless, I quickly gave in to her demands, thus leading to the current situation. Ren. Suddenly, a familiar voice called out for me. Turning around, a smile appeared on my face. You guys are here. Of course. We would never skip such an important day for you. With Nola in her arms, my mother walked up to me. Behind her was my father, who nodded his head towards me. I nodded back. Wooder. Nola called out for me as she extended her hands in my direction. Come here. Tee hee hee. Grabbing Nola by the armpits, she suddenly giggled. My brow raised as a result. An evil thought crossed my mind. Oh. Did that tickle you? Do you want more? Kaya ah ha ha ha. Faintly tickling her armpits, Nola suddenly screamed. Hearing her screams, I smiled even more and tickled a little bit more. Ren, stop bullying your sister. My mother scolded me as she slapped my shoulder. All right, I'll stop. Big Water is a meanie. Looking at me, Nola pouted. Tears gathered at the side of her eyes.
Aww.
I'm sorry, Nola. I'll make it up to you by winning, okay? Humph. Nola turned her head around and ignored me. I scratched the side of my neck. All right, you win. Sighing, I decide to resort to my secret weapon. Tapping on my bracelet, I took out a piece of candy. Instantly, Nola's eyes lit up. I'm already well versed in the art of bribery. Nola was a very easy child to appease. Just a simple piece of candy and she would instantly forget any grudge. No, I don't want. Just as Nola was to grab the candy, she suddenly stopped. Retrieving her hand, she continued to ignore me. The gears of my mind stopped working for a second. This was not how the script was supposed to go. She was supposed to take the candy and quickly forgive me. Why wasn't it like this? Maybe she wants another candy. How cute. Suddenly a thought struck me. This was indeed plausible. All right, here. Taking out another piece of candy, I put it in Nola's hand. Once again, she shook her head. No. You. My eyes narrowed. Once again I took out another piece of candy, making them 3. Yet again, Nola remained completely unfazed. Nola, what can I do to make you forgive me? Once again unable to appease Nola, I gave up and directly asked her. 5 candies. Glancing me by the side of her eyes, Nola opened her little hand. 5 candies? 5. Nola nodded her head. Her stance was clear. Unless I gave her 5 candies, I was going to be shunned by her. Fine, you win. I quickly gave up. There was no way I was ever going to win against my sister. Just as Nola asked, I gave her 5 candies. I had an endless supply of candy anyway, didn't really matter. Okay, Nola forgives you. Taking the candies, Nola happily smiled. She then proceeded to pat my head. That's a good boy. Opening my mouth, my mind suddenly blanked. I couldn't process what had just happened. What was that just now? No matter how I looked at it, she had just treated me like a dog. What in the world had happened whilst I was gone? Angelica. Then a thought suddenly struck me. It had to be her. Other than her, I couldn't think of anyone else that would corrupt my sister like this. Damn it, I'll definitely not let you off for this. Clenching my fists, I swore inside of my mind. How dare she? Ren, aren't you running late? My mother reminded me as she looked at her watch. I quickly snapped out of my thoughts. Crap. Checking my watch, I inwardly cursed. I really was running late. Please follow me, I'll lead you guys to the arena grounds. With Nola in my arms, I turned around and quickly led my parents to the arena grounds. All thoughts on revenge had to be put in the back of my mind for now. I had more pressing matters to attend to. Asterisk. After dropping my parents at the arena grounds, I quickly made my way towards the changing rooms. You're late. Waiting for me at the changing rooms was Kevin, who flashed his watch. Sorry, was with my parents. I was originally supposed to have met Kevin 10 minutes ago, but with all of the crowd, it took me much longer than I expected. Your parents? Kevin asked. Yup, was showing them the way to the arena. I see, must have been nice. Kevin lowered his head slightly. A look of nostalgia appeared in his eyes. So what are we going now? Pretending to have not seen it, I quickly changed the topic. We're supposed to meet up with the other first years, after that we are supposed to be heading to the augural ceremony. Lifting his head, Kevin responded. When's that? In about 2 minutes. Tilting his watch slightly, Kevin responded. Silence enveloped the changing room. Shh! *T. Cursing out loud, I took out my clothes and changed into a new uniform made specifically for the tournament. The new uniform was primarily black with a few touches of gold and white around the edges and insignia of the uniform. Putting on the uniform wasn't hard, as within a minute I was already changed. Let's go. Putting my other clothes in the dimensional space, I followed Kevin out of the room. From this point forward, the tournament arc had finally begun. Dark clouds filled the sky and heavy rain poured down.
Ha! Ha!
Inside of a massive arena filled with people, blood-curdling screams rang out repeatedly. Blood spilled everywhere and corpses littered the floor of the arena. Hua! Hua! The spirited cheering coming from the arena stands echoed all the way down towards the arena grounds, filling the contestants with adrenaline. Standing in the middle of the training grounds was a pale youth. Shi Ying. At some point, an individual snuck up from behind the youth and thrust their spear in the direction of their head. Right as the tip of the spear was about to connect to the youth's head, the youth tilted his head ever so slightly. The spear missed. Taking a step forward, the youth turned around and swung his saber. Spurt! A beautiful arc drew in the air and blood spilled everywhere. Thud! Following this was a small thud and a head rolled on the ground. That's 13. The youth muttered as he slashed his saber to the side. Instantly the blood on the saber spilled towards the ground. He then looked at the arena grounds. Wherever he looked, corpses lied on the ground as the sound of fighting echoed everywhere. Recovering some of his stamina, the youth was about to once again join the fray. However,
Beep! Beep!
Suddenly 2 large beeping sounds echoed across the arena grounds. Simultaneously, all content stopped whatever they were doing. Congratulations to those who have passed the trials. Out of the 500 initial contests, only 28 remained alive. For the contestants that have survived, please make your way out of the arena. Marking the end of the massacre was the voice of the announcer that echoed through the speakers around the arena. Following the announcement, all those that remained standing in the arena walked towards the exit. So did the youth. Moments after, multiple people dressed in white entered the arena and cleaned up the corpses on the ground. Congratulations, it was a splendid performance. Thank you. Arriving at the exit of the arena, a familiar voice echoed into the youth's ear. You better rest up for now, Matthew. The next round starts in a week. If you aren't in the best conditions, chances are that you might die. Will do. The youth, Matthew, lifted his head slightly. Standing before him was a black humanoid creature who had a smile on his face. How long has it been? Matthew wondered as he looked at Everblood before him. Matthew's memory of the past few months was hazy. After having been questioned by the authorities regarding the incident at the hotel a few months prior, Matthew had decided to leave everything behind and follow Everblood to the monolith. It was then that his new life had started. Every day was a struggle. Thrust into a domain where only the strongest survived, Matthew had to fight for everything. Every week he would join the arena games and compete for merit points. The game was simple. Within a specific time frame, hundreds of competitors would be put inside of an arena. Until then it was free for all. If you either survived or killed an opponent, you would be awarded merit points. Anything went there. There was no foul play. As long as you killed your opponent, you were the winner. This was the monolith, and this was how Matthew lived for the past months. Looking back, he could still remember his first time joining the arena games. He remembered that day like it was yesterday. How could he forget that day? It was the day that changed him. He could still vividly remember the degenerate look the others had in the arena grounds. At some point in time, the ground of the arena was already dyed in the color red. There were many powerful opponents in the arena, and a single act of carelessness could have resulted in him losing his life. Fortunately, he was amongst those who had survived. Having been trained since young, Matthew's skills were top-notch. If not for those, he would have long have died. As he struggled to survive, he could still remember the sound of a buzzer marking the end of the game. As if all energy had been sapped from his body, he remembered slumping down on the ground and blankly staring at the sky. It was then that he realized he needed to change. And so he did. Each week he would enter the trials and compete, putting his life on the line. He had realized that only through real life and death battles would his strength see actual improvements. It was now Matthew's 10th time entering the arena games, and ever since joining, he had undergone a drastic transformation. He had completely shed his past self and embraced his new self. He had been reborn. No longer was he the naive old Matthew that was easily flustered by unexpected changes. He was now a lot calmer and more calculative than ever. And this was all thanks to Everblood before him. Had it not been for him, none of this would have happened. You've earned a total of 1,200 merit points. Not bad. With this, you're one step closer to purchasing a devil fruit to increase your strength even further. Snapping Matthew out of his thoughts, Everblood patted Matthew on the shoulder. He was satisfied with today's harvest. MHM. Matthew nodded his head. Good, let's go rest up. Understood. Turning around, Matthew made his way towards the changing rooms. As he walked, his left foot limped slightly. From the looks of it, he was injured. Still, he stubbornly persevered. Good grief. As he looked at Matthew, Everblood smiled. Compared to the first time he had met him, Matthew was much calmer than before. He also spoke less and was more decisive. He had matured. Although he wasn't perfect, Matthew had this sharp feeling about it. Almost as if he was a sharpened sword ready to cut anything down. Although the sword was still a little bit dull, with a little bit more polishing, Everblood was confident in creating an unstoppable sword. Fighting with his life on the line every day, anyone was bound to change. From the very beginning, Everblood knew that Matthew was talented. His current change was within his expectations. No, rather, Matthew had exceeded his expectations. He was without a doubt a hidden gem. Still not ready though. Everblood shook his head. There was still a long way to go for Matthew before he would truly turn into a diamond. Till then, Everblood would do his best to polish him. Cuckoo, let's take a rest. The tournament is about to start soon. Let's tune the TV and start cheering for our little acquaintance, shall we? Everblood chuckled slightly. Turning around, he caught up with Matthew. Hopefully he'll show us how much he's grown during the time we didn't see him. Yes. Listening to Everblood's words, Matthew's clenched on the grip of his saber. The tournament, I was supposed to be in it too. Had it not been for the incident in the past, he too would have been one of the participants for the tournament. Unfortunately, his life had now changed. He could no longer have the same life as before. He knew that, yet he wasn't angry about it. There would eventually be a day where his name would spread around the world. Till then, he would continue to polish himself. Chapter 236, Inter Academy Tournament, 2. The sun slowly rose up from the horizon and the bright light coming from the sun fully illuminated the arena grounds of the lock. As time passed, the spectating stands of the arena grounds started to become filled with more and more people. At some point, no gaps could be seen from the stands as all seats became filled to the brim with people. If there was one thing that you had to take note of, it was that you couldn't watch the tournament for free. This was made to limit the number of people that could come and watch the tournament, as well as provide funds to pay for the security and management costs of hosting the tournament. Though the lock was rich, the price needed to host the tournament was tremendous. Fortunately, the admission cost wasn't too high either, it was only 1,000 U. And even if a limited number of people could enter the arena grounds, there was enough space to accommodate more than 50,000 spectators. 1,000 U was the base price. The nearer you were to the platform, the higher the price. You had to pay at least tens of thousands to enter the area that was nearest to the arena grounds. Even then, huge screens stood above the arena grounds showing the games that were happening below. So even if you were further back, it didn't really ruin the experience. Today, the people from Locke Academy were dressed in black school uniforms with golden and white patterns. Lined up behind them were the people from the 4 grade academies, and even further back were the other academies. There were a couple of reasons why the Locke was ahead of the other academies. It mainly had to do to the fact that in the last tournament they had reached first place overall in the rankings, with the 4 grade academies falling slightly behind. Aside from that, it was also because they were today's hosts of the tournament. As such, they were rightfully put at the front. Behind the Locke and the 4 grade academies were the other academies. Public and privately owned ones. Despite their limited budget, they were not to be looked down upon, as every year a dark horse would emerge from them. Even so, a large majority of them were inwardly praying that they wouldn't meet students coming from the Locke or the 4 grade academies. At least not on their first match. No one wanted to meet the strongest so early on in the tournament, as that would reduce their chances of standing out. Everyone was here to make a statement. They wanted to let their names be glorified and made known throughout the whole human domain in hopes of pulling the attention of some of the top guilds in circulation. No one was here to play today. Section G, Locke Arena Grounds. It was now 10 a.m., and the arena grounds were now filled to the brim with spectators. Everywhere I looked I could see people. Hoo-oo. Standing in the middle of the arena grounds, I took a deep breath. I was currently standing in a long line with all of the first years that were participating in the games. There were about 100 of us. Standing in 2 different lines beside us were the second and third years. Everyone's faces were solemn. You nervous? Feeling a slight nudge on the right side of my waist, I looked at Kevin, who was beside me. He had a slight smirk on his face. Unlike you, I'm not used to all of this attention. This was an event that would be broadcast everywhere. It'd be weird if I wasn't a little bit nervous. You'll get used to it. Don't think I ever will. Despite my popularity soaring over the past few months, I was still not used to the stairs. In fact, they were extremely bothersome. I really didn't think I could ever get used to such stairs. Silence. A loud and imposing voice suddenly spread throughout the entire arena grounds. Immediately, as the solemn voice covered the entire field, the originally clamorous arena grounds went completely still. All forms of noise ceased. Thank you all for attending the 15th edition of the Inter-Academy Tournament. Following the voice, an elderly man appeared at the center of the stage. The elderly man had long hair and a thick beard. Whilst his beard only reached halfway through his neck, his long hair spread over his shoulders, giving him a sort of free and easy appearance. The old man's face was also not ordinary. Despite his age, the elderly man could still be considered quite handsome. Chances were that in his younger days the old man was very handsome. Perhaps in the same league as Kevin or Jean. As he stood in the middle of the arena grounds, an ethereal and regal feeling exuded from his body. Be it students or attendants, everyone could feel it. He appeared unfathomable. It's the headmaster. One student spoke out loud, breaking the silence. The headmaster. He's here. I didn't think he would be here. Once again, the arena grounds were filled with noises as both students and attendants whispered amongst each other. That's the second time I've seen him. Besides me, Kevin muttered. Right, me too. I half-heartedly replied whilst my eyes never left the headmaster. The first and only time I ever saw the headmaster was during the inaugural ceremony at the beginning of the year. In theory, this should have been the second time I had met the headmaster, but he's a clone. The headmaster before me was not the real headmaster, he was a clone. The current headmaster was still not here. He was in fact doing a very important mission. The only reason he was able to attend today was due to him using one of his strongest skills in the arsenal. Double pulse. A ranked skill that allowed for him to create a clone of himself. The skill generally had a long cooldown period, hence why he couldn't do it often. It was also the skill that the headmaster was most known for. If things don't change, then he should be back by the end of the tournament. Did you say anything? Kevin asked as he looked at me. No, nothing. I inwardly shook my head. Really had to stop talking out loud. Okay. Fortunately, it didn't seem like Kevin had heard me properly as his eyes remained fixed on the headmaster. Suddenly the arena grounds quieted down as the headmaster started to speak. The Inter-Academy tournament is the most important event that is held each year to showcase the talented youths of the world. This year, the Lock will be the host of the event. As such, we will try our best to ensure your and the participants' safety. I would also like to commend those that traveled far to attend today's event to support your team or child. I'm sure that some of you are tired from traveling so far. For that, I applaud you and welcome to the Lock. Thank you for hosting the event. The instructors, students, and attendants applauded. This carried on for a minute before the headmaster raised his hand. Once again, all forms of noise ceased. Turning around, the headmaster looked at everyone in the arena. His crystal blue eyes looked as though they could see through anything. I can see a lot of talented and eager youths today. This is gratifying for me to see. Especially in these hard times. I really am glad. The headmaster paused. Looking back at the spectators, his voice boomed throughout the whole arena. And it is with such an honor that I officially declared the beginning of the Inter-Academy tournament. Damn. 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 Following the headmaster's declaration, fireworks shot in the air and the sky became dyed in a multitude of different colors. This carried on for 5 long minutes before they stopped. Once the fireworks stopped, the imposing voice from before once again rang out again. This is a message to all participants. In about a minute or so you will all receive a message with a timing schedule for your upcoming games. This time the announcement was focused on the participants of the tournament. Some games will be held here in the arena grounds, some will be held in the VR space below us, and some in different areas of the academies. Now, for the first few games of today, we will start off the tournament with the following games: the Hunter's Quadrant, Abyss Scavenger, Dummy Massacre, and Supernova Skip. All participants, please make your way to your games. Following the announcer's words, the atmosphere in the arena grounds reached a boiling point, whilst the atmosphere around the students became tense. Good luck, I'll be eagerly waiting for your performance. Patting my back, Kevin followed some of the other students out of the arena grounds. To think that I will be going in first. I groaned as I watched Kevin and the others leave. Because they didn't tell us when our games were in advance, I only just learned about the fact that my game was coming up soon. Fortunately, these are just the elimination rounds. The tournament would span over a period of a month's time. This was a given as there were thousands and thousands of students participating. They wouldn't be able to fit that many games in just a couple of days. Furthermore, students needed to be in optimal shape in order to perform at their best. If not, the games would not be as entertaining. Therefore, the chances of me being paired up with a strong contender were low. Though I wasn't scared of any challenge, it'd be better if I didn't go against anyone strong yet. Twang. Twang. Suddenly my phone rang. Most likely was a message regarding the games. Dummy Massacre, Rendover. Game time, 10:45 a.m. Location, arena grounds. Score, not applicable. Pass/fail, not applicable. ===. It indeed was a message regarding the games. Opening the message, I quickly scrolled through the information. Still have 30 minutes before my game starts. It was now 10:15 a.m., and given that my games were at 10:45 a.m., I knew that I still had 30 minutes to go before my next game started. This meant that for the next 30 minutes or so, I had nothing to do. Twine. As I was randomly scrolling through the data of the games to pass time, a notification clogged up my screen. It was my mother. Ren, I wish you the best of luck. Mom, Dad, and Nola can't wait for your performance. You better do your best. Reading the message, the edges of my lips curled upwards. Well, since my parents are watching, I better give them a show worth watching. I muttered as I put away my phone. Couldn't disappoint them, could I? Chapter 237, Statement 1. The rules of the Dummy Massacre game were quite simple. A contestant would be brought inside of a private room. In it were multiple combat dummies waiting in the room, each programmed to have different combat styles. A timer would be set up in the corner of the room, and the goal was to eliminate all of the dummies within that specified amount of time. If the contestant failed to win during that time limit, they were eliminated from the game. Because of the overwhelming number of participants, multiple different groups were created and only the top 5 of each group were allowed to pass to the next round. Therefore, even if an individual managed to defeat all of the dummies, they were not guaranteed a chance to pass to the next round. For those participating, time was of the essence. The fewer mistakes they made, the less time they would lose. Asterisk. Arena grounds. All done. Thank you. Thanking a female attendant, I walked away and looked at my wrist. Wrapped around it was a black bracelet. The bracelet was an artifact designed to suppress someone's rank. TSK, I can certainly feel my rank getting suppressed, I thought as I inwardly clicked my tongue. Typically it was used on prisoners, in this case, it was to make the competition fairer. Give the lower academies a better chance. Arriving at the edge of the arena grounds where a large metal door stood, I waited for my turn to start. Behind the metal door was the room that led to the Dummy Massacre game. Originally it used to be an indoor training ground, but just for the tournament, it was converted into the area that would be used to hold the Dummy Massacre games. This feels weird. As I was waiting for my turn, ever so slightly, the edges of my lips twitched. Amongst the participants present, I was the one that attracted the most attention. Everyone's eyes were on me. Even though I wasn't the only first-year participant coming from the lock, if someone here wasn't living under a rock, they would have seen my face on the news a month back. I was the top dog in my group. Everyone knew that. Their wariness and apprehension towards me made sense. I too would have done the same had I been in their position. Beep. Beep. Contestant, Jude Wright, time? 2:37 seconds. Schwa. The metallic doors suddenly opened and a confident youth walked out. Wearing a green-colored uniform, the youth turned around and looked at his score. A smirk emerged on his face. Dummy Massacre Group 9. 1, 237, Jude Wright/Rollon Academy. 2, 240, Dan Potter/Lutwick Academy. 3, 255, Odessa Mac/Citadel Academy. 4, 259, Willie Morin/Velmont Academy. 5, 301, Luo Shuigang/Cape Kroll Academy. ===. So 2 minutes and a half is enough to get first place? This was a lot lower than I had expected. From when I practiced a few weeks back, my all-time high score was in the early 2 minutes. Furthermore, the only reason it was still in the 2 minutes range was because I never went all out. Had I gone all out, my score would have been drastically different. Whilst I was looking at the scoreboard, I suddenly felt a stare directed towards my direction. Turning around, I found the same youth from before, Jude Wright, provocatively looking at me. Almost as if he was saying, "Try beating my score." Chuckling slightly, I helplessly shook my head. Seeing him challenge me, I figured that he was very proud of his score. Unfortunately for him, his smile would not last for long. I was going to give him a bit of a shocker. Participant Rindover, please make your way towards your designated area. With a tablet in his hand, the instructor in charge of the game spoke. You should have already been briefed about the rules, so I won't say much. Best of luck. Thank you. Fiddling with the gravity ring in my hand, I calmly walked into the room. Clank. Walking into the room, the metallic doors behind me closed. Darkness enveloped my vision. PA, following which the ceiling lights switched on. Surrounding me were over 50 dummies, each with different stances and builds. Some of the dummies were tall, whilst others were short. The dummies over here were created with a special metal alloy that could withstand the blows coming from ranked heroes, so I didn't have to worry about breaking them. During the game, all of the dummies' ranks would be suppressed to a similar level to mine, and when I exerted enough force to kill them, they would turn red and stop moving. 5:00 minutes. In the middle of the room stood a large digital timer that would start counting down the time once the game started. Your assessment will begin in 3 seconds. Best of luck. From the corner of the room, a female voice resounded across the room. 3. Should have probably stretched beforehand. Rubbing my neck, I put my hand behind my back and did a light stretch. I gotta reduce the tension in my muscles for optimal performance. Didn't know whether this was true or not, but it was what I was told ever since I was a kid. Thus, I just did it. 2. Right, I also promised my parents I would give them a good show. 1. As I was stretching, I was suddenly reminded of the message my parents sent me. Placing my hand on the sheath of my sword, I smiled. The assessment will now begin. Well, since I promised. Click. I can't let them down now, can I? A subtle metallic click resounded across the space. Which games are you planning on watching? Sitting on a large red sofa, Emma asked. Right now, inside of a special lounge area designated to the lock students, Emma sat down next to Kevin. In terms of aesthetics, the lounge was visually stunning with the furniture and decorations around the room coming from well-known brands and designers. In front of Emma and Kevin were multiple large TV screens showcasing the different matches that were happening in the arena grounds. Since they had no games today, they decided to watch the games in the comfort of the waiting rooms. Rather than watching the games under the boiling heat of the sun, they'd much rather watch it here. I'm gonna watch Ren's performance. Popping the top of a can and taking a sip of the carbonated drink, Kevin burped out loud. Burp, what about you? That's gross. Emma scooched a little bit to the side. After that, she mused for a moment before responding. I'm gonna watch Amanda. From what I recall, she's participating in the Hunter's Quadrant games. She was more interested in watching Amanda's game. As her friend, it was only obvious that she supported her. The Hunter's Quadrant? Yup. Hunter's Quadrant was a long-range type of game. The game took place outside of Section G, inside of the Dome, a building built specifically for the tournament games. The purpose of the Dome was to replicate the world outside of the human borders. One where beasts lurked everywhere. The Dome was a jungle-like environment that contained real beasts. The description alone was enough to tell just how much money was poured into creating such a facility. It was worth it though. There were plans for the academy to use the facility and open it for regular students. Rather than directly sending them outside for practical experience in fights against beasts, this was much better and safer for the students since it was a more controlled environment. Seems tough, Kevin muttered as he took another sip of the drink in his hand. Twisting the can, he started reading the nutritional information. He had to watch out for the calories. I'm not too worried about Amanda though. Well, Amanda is strong. You confident in the chances of Ren passing the round? Passing the round? Kevin took his eyes away from the can.
Yeah.
What do you think of Ren's chances at passing the round? PFTTT, unless he purposely loses, there's no way that guy's gonna lose. Kevin suddenly laughed. He had seen firsthand just how strong Ren was. This was made especially apparent from his training sessions with Donna and Monica. Even now Kevin couldn't say with confidence that he could fend off one of Ren's attacks. If Ren suddenly decided to sneak attack him, chances were that he wouldn't know how he died. That's how scary he was. There was simply no way Ren would lose. Kevin was confident. PFFFFF. Out of nowhere, Kevin suddenly burst out laughing. What's so funny? No, nothing. Kevin waved it off. He had just recalled something. How could I forget about the birthday gift Ren was supposed to give me? A week prior to the tournament, he recalled Ren suddenly asking him what he wanted for his birthday. At first, Kevin replied with, I don't really need anything, but after thinking for a bit longer, he suddenly came up with a wicked idea. Remembering Ren's dark face as he told him about the gift that he wanted, Kevin couldn't help but crack up. He couldn't wait for the match to end. I see, replied Emma as she took out her phone and randomly scrolled through some images. Oh, it's Ren's turn. Suddenly, Kevin pointed towards one of the TV on the right side of the room. Not far from where they were. Now? Yup. Then I guess I'll watch as well. Emma stood up and followed Kevin. Weren't you going to watch Amanda's game? Kevin could clearly remember Emma saying that she was going to watch Amanda's game. Did she have a change of heart? Her turn is in 30 more minutes, so I've got time. Checking her watch, Emma replied. Compared to the Dummy Massacre game, the Hunter's Quadrant took far more time to set up. The break in between each round was thus longer. Fair. Sitting on one of the seats nearest to the TV screens showing Ren's game, Kevin grabbed the remote. Turning the volume up, Kevin watched as Ren's figure calmly walked towards the center of the game room. Right as his footsteps halted, the lights of the room turned on and 50 or so dummies surrounded him. Surrounded by the horde of dummies, Ren looked completely unfazed. Right as the countdown hit 1, Ren placed his hand on the grip of his sword. Click! Following this, a subtle clicking sound resounded across the space. With a large thud, 5 dummies instantly dropped dead on the ground as their bodies turned red. Most shockingly, Ren did not move from his spot once. It was as though the dummies malfunctioned. This. Click! Click! Before Emma could even make out what happened, 2 more clicks resounded. This time 7 dummies fell on the ground. Once again their bodies turned red. How? Emma stood up. Her eyes opened widely. Sitting beside Emma, Kevin smiled. He was already too familiar with this scene. Unfortunately for Ren, the opponents were too many in numbers. Right after the first wave was eliminated, the remaining 38 dummies assaulted him from all sides. It was then that an even more shocking scene appeared. Right as the dummies were about to come close to Ren, 3 translucent circles appeared before him. With a lazy smile on his face, Ren pointed towards his left, right, and back. What? Emma suddenly exclaimed, attracting the attention of some of the other students lazing about in the lounge area. What's going on? Is there something entertaining? What? Turning their attention towards the TV screen Emma was watching, they too were left outstunned by the scene depicted on the screen in front of them. With 3 rings within 5 meters of him, the spectators watched as some of the dummies started getting pulled by the rings. Though the pulling force was weak, it was enough to slow down the movements of some of the dummies. Click. 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 This was enough, as the same clicking sounds repeatedly rang across the area. Dummy after dummy turned red as they all fell on the ground. This scene repeated itself before only one last dummy stood before Ren. Calmly looking at the dummy, Ren once again touched the grip of his sword. Click. Following the last click, the last dummy fell, thus marking the end of the trial. In the waiting room, apart from Kevin, almost everyone who caught a glimpse of the scene could not close their mouths for a solid minute. As though a lump was stuck in their throat, no one knew what to say at the moment. However, if there was one common thought everyone had, it was, "I'm glad that he's on our side."
Ha.
Exhaling, I looked around me. The ground next to me was littered with dummies, all of which were dyed in the color red. Turning my attention towards the center of the room, I looked at the time left. I had 2:59 minutes. 2 minutes and 1 second, this should be enough for now. I honestly breezed through this. Although the difficulty was at its lowest, as in the further rounds it would become much higher, I was honestly surprised by how easy it was. Or did I once again get stronger? I wasn't sure. Rumble. Startling me out of my thoughts was the rumbling sound coming from the large metal door behind me. Opening up, the glorious sight of the arena grounds was once again revealed to me. Covering my eyes as I walked out of the room, I suddenly felt multiple eyes directed in towards my direction. Unfazed by the stares, I calmly walked back to where I stood before. Oh! My footsteps suddenly halted. Looking up, I found my image on one of the larger screens. Hoo! Gritting my teeth, I took a deep breath. Why did I even agree to this? Turning around, I looked left and right to see where the camera pointing at me was. I soon spotted it. Once I did, with deadpan eyes, raising my right hand, I did a peace sign and blew a kiss to the camera. == 1:201, Ren Dover. 2:237, Jude Wright. 3:240, Dan Potter. 4:255, Odessa Mack. 5:259, Willie Morin.